Playtime was released for the first time in October of 2021. It caused a big stir in the mascot horror genre as it not only took a lot of inspiration from previous projects by other people, but it also did a generally less creative twist. The game seemed to take a lot of things from Bendy and the Ink Machine and Five Nights at Freddy's. From Bendy, it took the concept of an old employee going into the factory and having to face all the creator's old experiments, while the concept of children being experimented and killed and put inside the mascots was taken from Five Nights at Freddy's. Today, the game has garnered even more of a fan base than Bendy and the Ink Machine, while still competing pretty directly with Five Nights at Freddy's despite not being able to get over its popularity, but still being well known for its direct inspiration to the game. It's mostly iconic for being a cookie-cutter mascot horror and producing tons of merchandise every single chapter. It's way easier to produce merchandise since the game is directly revolved around a toy factory, therefore it can be directly translated into the actual toys with the gimmick that they're said to have in-game. I recently decided to try out the game because the character Lily Lovebraid's particularly interested in me, and I saw reactions from YouTube like Markiplier.
Oh my god! In
Queso.
There is no way!
Being relatively negative towards it. I played the first chapter back in 2021 because I was interested in every new mascot horror that was coming out, since mascot horror was primarily games that I enjoy. Although, after seeing all the chapters eventually and how quickly they were coming out and how boring the concepts were, I eventually lost faith in the franchise. What I want to do is go through every single game and basically explain public opinion and the strengths and weaknesses of, well, each game. Chapter 1 released in late 2021 and had a solid base going. The Grab Pack was a cool and unique way of getting through puzzles that hadn't really been thought of before. Little did they know, that concept would get abused like a shelter dog in the upcoming years. The final chase, despite not being insanely well crafted or intense, still managed to scare almost anyone who played it. And enacted a stressful chase sequence that got me stressing too. The first chapter was solid, and expectations were high. Of course there was criticism of the lore not seeming that interesting and the general game not being that scary, but the general consensus was that the game was well made, and everyone was excited to see what Mob Entertainment would cook up next.
How'd you like my green room?
After a sticky situation over at the NFT department, which I will not touch with a 40-foot pole, Chapter 2 rolls around, introducing the new, unique villain of the series. Mommy Longlegs, a noodle-limbed pink toy voiced by Uzi from Murder Drones, rolls around and confuses the few supporters that the game had quite a lot. Huggy Wuggy, the extremely creatively named villain of the first chapter, was believed to be the primary villain of the series. He wasn't very scary, but he had a good chase sequence and still managed to scare players, so that's really all that mattered. But the fanbase expected that after seeing the endless criticism regarding the designs, eventually someone in Mob Games would go,
Hey, why don't we make our villains look actually scary?
Instead, they pull up with a somehow even less scary character that doesn't have that great of a chase sequence. Okay, the chase sequences were fine, but they happen really frequently, and dying in them was pretty easy, so it just kind of removed all the tension that you once had while being chased. Dying in a chase sequence won't be as good when redoing it because you know what's going to happen, so all the tension that you had beforehand just disappears. The chase sequence in the original game was made in a way where you really had to mess up in order to die, but the game also made it feel like Huggy was constantly on your ass when he was actually a pretty good distance away. This chapter release wasn't great, and it was very obvious that Mob knew that they had to make an improvement if they wanted to satisfy the fans. So, they made Dead by Daylight. For some reason, Mob halted all production of Chapter 3 to bring an asymmetrical player versus player game set inside the Playtime Co factory, introducing the new character, Boxy Boo.
Could we put, like, any effort into actually naming our enemies.
And tried squeezing money out of you like Fortnite, except at least Fortnite has half decent gameplay, and Pomni Yam. Mob was in the depths. They lost almost all their respect, except for little babbling babies who didn't know what capitalism was, and they had no choice but continue the original Poppy Playtime series. And this time, they really needed to step up their game. And they fucking did? Chapter 3, The Rise of the Smiling Critters. Come, a new hellish group of children's torture devices drops the scariest Poppy Playtime chapter yet. This chapter knew how to scare you. Shit, when I played Chapter 3, I was genuinely on the brink of tears sometimes.
Oh, please, no.
Hey. Chapter 3 had some genuinely terrifying sections and really good methods of scaring you half to death, especially the Home Sweet Home section. This chapter had you finding out that Playtime Co had a secret orphanage built underground that was originally made by the love and care of Elliot Ludwig's heart, but then became fucking Area 51 and they started experimenting on those kids. The point is that some of the sections in this chapter were genuinely terrifying, to where if you put all the Smiling Critters fandom playing the game in a room alone, 4/5 of them would leave crying because they're like less than 1 year old, and the rest would probably not have been paying attention because they were too busy scrolling on r/lollies. But maybe that's not saying much. The horror in this game was perfectly executed. The visuals were stunning, which is pretty typical for the series, but it was elevated by 1000% because of the part where you entered play care. It was obvious that they decided to prey on that part of your childhood that creeps you out, that liminal feeling that you get when you think of nightmares that you had as a kid. And the main villain, Catnap, was by far the scariest villain in the series. It's not even up to debate. Of course, they still have shitty children's toys that they would sell by just using the non-monster version of the Smiling Critters. And the monster versions too, fuck it, why not? Now naturally, after having such a big step up, you'd expect everything to only be uphill from here, right? Yeah, okay, this chapter, there's not really much to say about it. It's solid, not really scary, but it's very obvious that it's a lore-driven chapter and isn't made for actual, like, scares. Puzzles are just sprinkled out randomly to keep the puzzle tag on Steam. Now the villain here, who actually isn't a villain for most of the story and only tries to kill you when the Wonderland system takes over.
Hi, I'm Oliver.
Hey, I'm Elliot.
It's kind of just, like, pissed off at the big bad villain that's been hinted to this whole time, called the Prototype. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, is like the first attempt at bringing in, like, life into the toys after Poppy, because she was an accident. So he's like really mad and wants to kill all workers, and he made the Hour of Joy happen, which is something that was real in episode 3, blah blah blah. Kill all toys, rebelling, and fucking killing almost the whole company. Oh yeah, and Harley Sawyer's here too, but he's like a copy of Dr. Harley Sawyer, who experimented on kids, but who gives a fuck?
Ploppy playtimes. Broken thing.
Chapter 5 comes out and they reveal the Prototype. Wow, it's so cool. But this is when people really start getting sick of mob shit. You see, there's been one reoccurring issue in the series that I've been gatekeeping. The puzzles in this game are the most insufferable and unfun shit, and they happen very frequently. They're almost always confusing and really repetitive.
La 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 la. La 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 la.
Where the fuck am I supposed to go?
The Crap Pack, despite being cool and interesting and different from any mascot horror before it, is really limited in how many puzzles you can do with it. They've tried introducing new hands and mechanics, but it really just circles back around to not being that versatile of a mechanic. The gameplay just boils down to being some really mediocre puzzles for 4 hours. Sure, not all the gameplay is shitty puzzles, but the rest of that is some really mediocre chases, albeit cool lore reveals and character interactions. Sure, you can have chases happen frequently, but in a game that has some really easy to die and repetitive chases, it's just not fun to go through slow and boring puzzles and then go to a really repetitive chase sequence that you can't figure out and just keep going back to, which doesn't even make it fun! It's clear that this game franchise had a lot of potential at the start, but ever since Chapter 2 came out, it's obvious that they haven't been taking advantage of things that made childhood toys scary. Like I said before, Furbies are a perfect example of toys that were already kind of scary to kids and could be made scary in a way that makes them look profitable in the world that they're in, but still a good mascot horror.
Ciao pezzi di merda. Tua mamma.
If Chuck E. Cheese managed to be loved by kids and still turn scary by Five Nights at Freddy's, then I think Bob can do the same thing with something that there's more than one modern day example of. There is one animatronic-based pizza restaurant in the world. Toys are the most popular item for anyone under the age of 100, so there's definitely some toys out there that got popular and still managed to be creepy. I don't think you could run out of toys to take inspiration from that fit the mold unless you were trying to make as many chapters as there are pedophiles in a presidential position. Anyway, I think Poppy Playtime is still a series that's worth checking out if you're trying to get a quick scare and a quick cringe. If you're actually looking for something that will make you shit your pants or put you into an active community of adults, it's really just not that worth it. Most of the good consumable content from this game series is either made for kids, but still decently good, or pornography. Anyway, that's all I gotta say on this mediocre series. I'm gonna climb on a penis-shaped rocket and I'm gonna shoot to space. Bye!